Good morning and welcome to Sports Desk Live on Comcast Channel 26, also streamed on Facebook. I'm your host, Ed Nunez, along with our producer, Alden Iwani. Today's special guest is Leon Lopez, who officiated high school sports for 43 years and has just recently announced his retirement. You know, Leon, a retirement from officiating and your professional profession as well. So, Leon, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me on, Ed. It's a pleasure.
You know, Leon, you and I will get into we called a 5A final in 2001, I believe, and I'll never forget it. I didn't call near as many as you, but I want to go over you started as an official in 1978 doing intramural games at New Mexico State, and you joined the Santa Fe officials in 1980. You worked basketball, football, baseball, softball, and volleyball. And you were also a men's softball umpire for 10 years and called college basketball on the RMAC level. Now, I think one of the things is for you, I want to ask you, what was that calling to do that? I remember when I would play basketball at Whittier, down the street here, we would always make up calls. I always had this whistle, and I don't know what, even during the game, I was always pretending to be an official, right? And I don't know what it was later that made me want to be that official. I think I started out kind of playing around with it, but what was it that made you? Because intramurals are not easy to call. I called them at Eastern New Mexico for a while, but what was the calling that made you want to be an official? Was there somebody that mentored to you, or somebody you saw that you wanted to emulate, or what was that calling to be a high school football, basketball, all the sports you've done?
Ed, I guess I've thought about this several times, and it was a combination of things, right? I saw people that I admired kind of being out in the middle of these heated games and heated situations. And I always thought it would be challenging and something that I would like to do, to be in those situations where your calm demeanor would have to kind of overtake the situation, and people would have to see you as this person that would be able to resolve something that was difficult to resolve. So I really I guess gravitated to the challenge of being out there with people in these important games, because they're all important at some point, so it's important to be that trusted person that has a very good view of the rules and be able to make that decision.
I think the calm demeanor describes you really well. When I did that final with you, there's 14,000 people in the stands, Hobbs versus Clovis, and again, you're right. When I look at calm demeanor as far as officials, and I officiated for 22 years, I think of Mike Kleppel, right? Mike Kleppel was one of the greatest storytellers and greatest disarmers of coaches that there was, because he had those people skills. There's some other guys that had different demeanors, right? There's different styles for everything. I used to watch some other guys. I could only be me. I could only be who I was. And I thought your demeanor was always that. You know what? You're going to talk to coaches. I've always said to coaches when I officiated, I don't mind questions. I don't mind if you have a question mark at the end of it. You got an exclamation point. We've got an issue. Start making statements. We got an issue. Now, I'm not saying we don't miss calls. We do, but I think that demeanor that you had for 43 years in all these sports that you did, at least emulated some fairness. Coaches knew they could come and communicate and ask you a question, and you weren't going to go over the top with your emotions. Talk about that, because that's really important, Leon, to keep your cool in the midst of all what's going on around you.
Yeah, I guess I have to say that that's probably one of my strong points. Obviously, I always appreciated the fact that coaches would want to talk. Sometimes it turned into a yelling match, and that wasn't really what we wanted to do. But I appreciated the fact that I would be able to listen to coaches, listen to their point of view. Most of the time, coaches just want to get their point across. They don't really want you to say too much. They want you to tell them what the rule says, and then that's it. You don't have to get into any kind of discussion with them. But I thought that was something that I could do. I always walked up to coaches and was in a very neutral manner. I never kind of was in any kind of, my demeanor was always kind of plain, and I wanted to make sure that I didn't show any emotions, because you're right, Ed, we're human. People in the stands, coaches always, and in many cases, sometimes have better views than we do from a play perspective, because we're we're constantly moving. We're trying to find that angle. But I think it's really important for coaches to understand that we were always trying to get the best angle to make the play. Sometimes it just wasn't there because of the speed of the game or something happened at the last second. But I felt that if I had a conversation with a coach, and in some cases I had to own up to the fact that I didn't have a good angle, and he may have had the right answer, but I appreciated the fact that in many cases coaches would come back to me and say, all right, Leon, I understand, but we have to kind of move on. And you know, there's many of them that were really good and would move on, but there was always those nights that we just couldn't get past it, right? And that's when you had to draw the line and you had to take matters into different directions based on where we were. But for me, it was always the game was the end of the game. There was something to happen the next day, I would leave everything on the court. So if I had the coach a couple of nights later, there was no hard feelings. We would start over from square A, and the game would be called to the best that I could call it that night.
That's right. No grudges, no past, no, right. We move on. You're right. And that's some, I'll be honest with you, Leon, and we have to be honest here. Some officials could not do that. Let's be honest, right? And some
true.
officials did, and no one's perfect. I wasn't either, but there were grudges. Hell, there was. And we can't lie about that. You know, I've got a little quote here from someone that knows you. Leon is one of several officials that benefited from a solid foundation that was present in the Northeast that allowed him to have a great run in officiating. Congratulations to him, and that's from Danny Lujan. Danny Lujan, the longtime assigner out there, and another guy that refed it all, right? That did baseball.
Yeah.
A lot of respect for Danny. A lot of respect for him, and he's got a tremendous amount of respect for you.
Yeah, and Danny was my longtime partner, right? When Danny started, I started. So we were young bucks in the game of trying to get better and trying to call everything and be fair to everyone. So I have a lot of respect for Danny. Went through many battles together. He ended up moving on and becoming the assigner in this region, and I continue to officiate. So we've had a long-standing relationship, but he has a really good point. I mean, I feel that you know, I had 2 years where I officiated in Las Cruces, so organization. When I was in college, I started doing the intramurals. I feel that I had a really good foundation in Las Cruces because they stressed mechanics. It was really very mechanical, and I learned how to, you know, study the rules, be very mechanical on the court, and be able to get to those spots and move around. But then when I moved to the Northeast region, I brought a lot of those skills with me. I trained a lot of people around me. People started to gravitate to the fact that there was more than a freestyle of refereeing, and we dove into the rules. We kind of talked about plays, and we made the organization better. And Danny had a large part to do that with that. So I feel that we were kind of a partner in crime there for years to do that.
You know, you're talking about making the game better, and I remember the late Kip Luna talking about that. The game is ever, you know, always changing. We must change with it. I remember Kip talking about that a lot, about watching film, and he made our organization better. There's no question about it when he was in charge. Now, you did 15 New Mexico State championships. You're fourth on that list all time. I don't know if Tommy Stroh is on that list, and there's others too.
Tommy Stroh is number one in the list.
Tommy Stroh, man. Everybody knows who Tommy Stroh is, one of the greats for sure. But, you know, you work with Bobby Rodriguez, legendary coaches, Marv Sanders, Coach Tasker, and Coach Holzman. Now, Coach Rodriguez, man, I'll tell you, I remember when my brother played at St. Pius and he coached St. Mike's. He was coaching the Robinsons and Peabody. I remember that team was a very good team. And I remember being at Highland and watching Coach Rodriguez in action. And I was in 8th grade, man, 7th grade. That guy scared the heck out of me, man. And, you know, good coach, legendary, Ernie Rodriguez, David Rodriguez, Billy Rodriguez, Mark Rodriguez, Noah Mall. You know, it's a legendary family. Talk about a little bit about working one of his games because, you know, the late Bobby Rodriguez, he's been gone for a while. But I'll tell you what, a lot of people remember Coach Rodriguez, and he would work the heck out of you, man.
Yeah, Bobby Rodriguez was very tough to work for. I started working for him when I was way behind the years, maybe 3 or 4 years into it. Dicky Rodriguez used to be our assigner. You know,
I remember
the
Dicky.
Legendary Dicky Rodriguez before that. And he said, "You're going to work some of these games." And I said, "Well, okay, let's go try it." So I started working for Bobby Rodriguez, and I remember being in his Capital City tournament, and I was working a game for him, and I made a call, and I went to the table, and he says, "Well, what was that call?" And I said, "It was all call on number 35, whatever." And he says, "You should have made that call." I said, "I made it. It was the right call." He says, "You will not make that call again." So he was very intimidating from the standpoint that he had a way of kind of driving you. So he kind of put a little fear into you
Yes.
every time you
Yes.
were out there, and you felt like there was somebody watching you everywhere. But we went many years. I called for Bobby Rodriguez, and things progressed to get better, and became more of a trusted, more source for me. So he understood that I was getting better, and we went through our times together, and the whole family. David Rodriguez is still coaching at St. Mike's, and I respect him. He's done really well. Ernie Rodriguez coached for years, so the whole family has just a legacy of teaching young kids, and we've been part of that. Officials have been part of families and students. And I guess that's really something that I feel really proud of, the fact that I've been able to kind of be in this mix for so many years with different peoples and different families.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. I mean, Coach Rodriguez, you mentioned, I remember you mentioned working for Coach Ron Geyer, the legendary coach at Alamogordo. He's been also at Los Lunas. He was coaching up at St. Mike's for a while. And, you worked for Coach Holzman. They all had their own different styles. I think they were intimidating in their own way. Not as everybody was going to be a Coach Rodriguez or even Coach Richard Martinez up at Espanola, who could be very intimidating. He tried to be, right? I know he tried to do that to me a couple times, and I wasn't having that. I mean, I'm going to call a fair game, but some of that stuff did work on me, man. I mean, but he could be that way. He could be that way for sure. There's no doubt about it, right?
Well, I do think that in northeast or northern New Mexico, there seems to be such a passion for basketball. When we go on a regular basis to Espanola, and there's 16,000 people in the stands, for a game, and it's hard to get into a game, and they're there, cheering on their teams. In northern New Mexico, the gyms were always packed. Mesa Vista, Mora, Aldos, Echoes, they packed their gyms. People were there to see the event because it was a community event, and that's what they had to do. And it's amazing. A lot of times people from the rest of the state don't really have that effect. When they go to the pit, some of these teams, and they fill the pit, it's amazing. It's amazing because all those people at some point are coming from northern New Mexico to watch basketball.
You know what? There's no question. The North is very passionate about their basketball. I had a chance to call Mora in the state tournament when Manuel Romero was coaching there, and I still remember that boot stomp, boom, 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 boom. And I tell Coach, "All right, okay, Coach, I hear you, man. I hear you." But that passion is incredible. I love it, right? Because we love basketball, we love sports. We're going to take a break. Leon Lopez after these messages on the sports desk.
Nunez gets a count, and he blows right past it. He's going to go all the way into the trees, had it blocked, back to him, kicks it out for a three, yes! Nothing but nylon for Tapia.
Pass by Trey Rhodes.
With the bat, there's a steal by Archuleta, who's going to put it up and in.
It's up and one off the glass. I heard him call it for here. Alejandro Davalos with the big three.
Basket there for Natalia Chavez. So take the long three off the glass. Beautiful shot. the holder. Holy cow.
Oh, another turnover. Will we see it? Throw it down, big man. Josiah Ortiz.
Jackson bounces it in. That one's loose. Keene ends up with the loose ball. Turn around and puts it up and in.
Good, but Roy gets the rebound, puts it right back on. No good, but then he does put it in, and that is good. That is good.
Rebound, Bradford, and wow, Marcus King takes it to the basket strong. The two-handed dunk. No good, Lagunas, 2 seconds, shoot it from half court. And it's in! Brandon Lagunas at the buzzer.
The energy landscape is limitless and ever-changing. Cleaner energy resources are crucial to New Mexico's environment. For 100 years, PNM has utilized cutting-edge technology and employed hard-working New Mexicans to ensure that we have consistent, reliable energy when we need it. For life's loudest moments, quietest moments, and every moment in between. We're dedicated to providing you with energy now and into the future. All you have to do is dream of what to do with it next.
A burglary takes place in the United States approximately every 15 seconds. International Protective Service is your answer for commercial and residential security in all of Albuquerque. IPS will work with your monitoring company for fast, reliable response times. You can rest easy knowing you, your family, or your company is watched over by International Protective Service. Call International Protective Service today.
Welcome back to the Sports Desk live on Comcast Channel 26, also streamed on Facebook. Very special guest today is Leon Lopez, who officiated sports for 43 years. You know, and we know you as a basketball official, but you did it all. You did volleyball, football. That's a lot of service, man. That's a lot of service. And, you know, again, I always say this. You know, Henry Tafoy would say this. But folks will yell from the stands, but if you say, hey, man, here's the whistle, right? You know, I used to be one of the worst when I coached at Highland. I was one of the worst critics until I put the whistle on and shirt, because it's way different, way different. You go try it. I always tell people, go try it, man. Me and my son would have that argument all the time when he coached at St. Pius with Damian Segura. And he'd tell me about officials. I said, son, how many games have you called, man? You ain't called no games, have you? Be quiet then. You ain't called. You don't know. And you think you know it looks good from row 10 until you're in the heat. Got to make a block charge call with 2 seconds. Oh, man, right? Right?
Yeah.
So, yeah. And,
It's a whole different.
Yeah, so we're going to got some pictures that our producer, Alden Iowani, is going to show. And I think there's some great photos of you here, Leon, of you in action while officiating. There you are right there. It's a great shot right there. And you were kind enough to show that, you know, to us. And there's a couple more we got for you. Your son, Leon Jr., also officiated. There's a great picture who I really, you know, your son and I are always been good with each other, man. I like him a lot. And you mentioned him as he came up to officiate, and he doesn't officiate anymore. And, you know, he went another way, and that's okay, right? Sometimes we're not going to last. I lasted 22 years. I'd still been doing it, but my knees wouldn't do that anymore. But then, you know, it was a seamless transition to broadcasting. But talk a little bit about mentoring your son, Leon Jr., because it's tough. You've got the same name, right? So, you know, right away, there's going to be people on him because he's your son, right? Talk a little bit about that, mentoring your son.
Well, you know, it was just interesting, I guess, when he was really young, he wasn't really interested in officiating. You know, he used to see me officiating all the time. He used to be had games when he was really young, had no interest in officiating. You know, he used to be in the stands. He played basketball in high school. You know, one day he decided, he just came out of the blue and he said, Dad, I'd like to try refereeing, right? And So I said, okay, well, let's try it. So we got him in the circuit, right? We started doing the elementary games and the junior highs and all those different things. And then he did a little bit of high school, started doing some high school here in Santa Fe. And he decided to move to Albuquerque. He was going to go do some schooling at CNM. And he decided to do that. He moved over there, and I told him to join the association over there in Albuquerque. But it was really a lot of fun. You know how basketball is in AAU. You can work hundreds of games in the summer, and we worked that for 2 or 3 years. And he got better, and then he decided to kind of go to college. So he went to some camps, as all of us do, to get hired into college. He got hired into the Stigliano League down in West Texas.
Lone Star League.
Yeah, the Lone Star League, and he ended up getting into about 5 conferences. But his highlight is he got seen by an NBA scout, so he got taken to New York, and he had a tryout for some different levels of NBA people that they have as prospects and stuff. So he was in the NBA program for about 3-4 years. People would call him every once in a while, see how his schedule was going, and invite him to different camps. But that's something that he was able to do. So I have a lot of admiration for all the work that he put in. He worked 10 years. He decided to move away. With the COVID stuff, he was on the road all the time. He was really nervous about where he had to go, how he had to kind of interact with people. And he had a daughter that was getting of age, and he wanted to kind of a teenager, so he wanted to be around her more. So he decided to move away and start a business here in Albuquerque. And but it was just so much fun, to mentor your own. It's just to be able to kind of talk to them on long road trips and be able to talk about things that were good and things were the bad. And I admire him because he learned a lot of those things, right? He took it to heart, and he studied, he viewed tapes, and of his games and his positioning. He changed his running. He did many things to improve.
Yeah, there's so many things that make up an official, and those are moments that you'll never forget with your son. I got another quote from you, or about you. Leon was the official who definitely had the most influence on my officiating career. He was my mentor and also my friend. He and I spent so many hours on trips discussing basketball officiating. It made me a better official. There are no words to describe what he's meant to me, and especially the kids of New Mexico high school basketball. And that's from one of Santa Fe's best and one of the state's best, Mark Salazar.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes, Ed, it really is about people see you and see how you act on the court, off the court. And it was always about being a good role model to these people. So I wanted to make sure that when I was on the court, they saw the calm demeanor, and that things could be handled in a calm demeanor rather than in a different fashion, right? So a lot of times when you're mentoring, it's not even what you say. It's sometimes it's what they see, right? Because I've had people come up to me after, doing a big game in Santa Fe Capital, and they come up on Monday at the meeting and they say, wow, I saw that call you made, and you managed it so well, right? From that perspective of positioning, how you handled the coaches, the coach that was upset over it, so it's really about just how you do things in a lot of cases.
Demeanor. No, you're absolutely right. We mentioned some great officials up there in the Northeast. We mentioned Danny Lujan. Wilson Holland was a member of the Santa Fe Officials Association. Ralph Ortiz, a very good friend of mine, and just quite a character, right? Every time I talk to Ralph, I love Ralph, man. Very, very good friend. Jake Martinez, Sonny Cordova. We can't name them all, but you work with some very, very good officials. I wanted to ask you some questions. Toughest coach you had to work with. Now, you mentioned Coach Rodriguez. Mentioned Coach Sanders. They each had their own different way. Toughest coach, Coach Armendariz, was no picnic at the park either, man, with that big old bigote, right?
Right.
Coach Armendariz used to have me rolling. He did. I liked him. He's tough, though. He let you know, man. He really would. Toughest coach you had to work with. Would you consider one above another?
I guess there was, I don't know if I'd call them tough. I mean, they all had their personalities. I think they all had different ways that you have to kind of deal with their idiosyncrasies as far as how they like things. You know, they're very passionate about certain things, and that's what made me a better official, is that I knew that tonight I was working for Coach Geyer. And I know that Coach Geyer was very passionate about a 5-second call in the backcourt because his guards played such really good defense. So that's an example that he wanted to see me counting 5-second count so that he could know where he was, right? So he could encourage his kids, so he could tell them what they were doing wrong. If your arms were spread and you weren't counting, they needed to get closer, right? So it's always about those things, right? And you know, there's coaches that would love, Armendariz loved his teams to take block charges, you know, so his players would run, get position, and then take a charge. So you always had to get better that night on the block charge because you had to make sure the feet were set and you had a good view of that, because Armendariz was going to give you a hard time if you didn't.
He's going to let you know. Yeah. Leon, we gotta wrap this up. I'm sorry we don't have more time, but you've also retired from your job at the labs, and you know, you're going to be doing some evaluating as far as basketball officiating, and they need you. You've got a lot of experience to be able to tell younger officials where you've been and how to get there. They may have a different path and get there a different way, but your experience will mean so much. Leon Lopez, we wish you all the best in your future endeavors. Thank you for the service you gave to New Mexico athletes.
Thank you so much, Ed. I really appreciate the time on your show.
You bet. For producer Alden Iwani, I'm Ed Nunez. We'll see you next week on the Sports Desk. Great job.
I prefer to do stuff online. I can find things much quicker, do the research I need, and have it shipped or waiting for me to pick up. The Shop by Payments option was perfect for me. I got online, clicked on Shop by Payments, put in my down payment and monthly budget, and the guessing was done. From laptop, I was able to nail down the bike I wanted, add a few customizations, and get an estimate on my trade-in.
Well, I'm going to the frontier, walking to the cashier, order up a root beer and a #1. Cover it with green stuff, one scoop is not enough. Find a booth is real tough, back by the Duke. Meet my family, meet my friends in the quirkiest restaurant I have ever been. All of Albuquerque's favorite spot, it's the Frontier Restaurant.
The Frontier Restaurant is a proud supporter of ProView Networks.
I'm Ben Lucero, president and owner of Indigo Mortgage. We are a locally owned and operated mortgage company right here in New Mexico. This means your loan officers and processors are right here to serve you. Our mortgage divisions include residential, commercial, construction, reverse mortgages, and VA mortgage loan. Indigo Mortgage, because nobody cares